Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Mind-Boggling Concepts in the Torah. Remember, as per usual, put down every sharp object and don't get too close to the microphone. We don't want to spread any of those diseases. So we have a double parsha this week, behar, behukotay. Sorry, English isn't my first language. So there's just so much in these two parshas. We're also finishing a book, and remember, one of the things I've been remiss on is every parsha in the Torah starts and ends on the same theme. Every book in the Torah starts and ends on the same thing. Now, this is actually fascinating. I find it fascinating personally. And Rav Matis Weinberg makes this point because if you tie the beginning of the book of Vayikra to the end, you see a beautiful obvious points that the Torah is making. How does the book start?
Calling Moshe, Vayikra el Moshe, Vaydeber.
And how does it end?
Similar, right? These are the Elah HaMitzvot Asher Tziva Hashem et Moshe el Bnei Yisrael Behar Sinai.
That's true. But remember what we've talked about before. Chazal say that the Torah begins and ends on the same theme. How does it start? On Chesed. How does it start? With the clothing of Adam. And it ends with Chesed of burying Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
But if you notice, I don't know if you did, but if you notice, the Torah doesn't start with the clothing of Adam.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But neither does it end really with Moshe, right? Is that the exact last thing?
Okay. No, that is more accurate.
We got you, Rabbi.
No, that's more accurate. I mean, the clothing of Adam is already in chapter 3. Right.
So it starts with the chesed of his creating the world for us.
That's what I would have thought, exactly. But the Torah, Chazal say that's not. It's the clothing of Adam. And Rabbi Platnik makes a very good point. Why isn't creation a chesed?
Because if there's no one to receive this creation, what chesed are you performing?
Right. There's no chesed, and that you see that in creation itself. It's not just a concept in the Torah. The world doesn't live on chesed. It's all din. It's all exactitude. The animal world and everything in the physical world follows precise rules. There's no room for error. Animals have exactly what they need to eat. They don't store up food. No
refrigerators. No refrigerators.
There's no refrigeration. There's nothing. They get exactly what they need when they need it. Everything is precise. There's no abundance. There's no abundance. Even if they they find a big watering well, right? They can only drink as much as they get. They can't take anything in bottles and put it store it for the summer. That's the whole world. Existence lives like that. Chesed is when you have to have a human being that can appreciate the kindness that you're doing to them. That's why Chazal say that it's asa to do chesed to somebody who doesn't have any dust, who doesn't understand what's going on. You see this with the Hamas, with the Arabs, with the Palestinians. Right? They're as clueless as two bricks. That
so strange. You know, like it seems obvious to the rest of the world, I think, that they were going to lose, and yet they're still going.
They're still gone.
But that's the strange thing, is because they expect Israel to give up, but they themselves are not.
It's not only that, but they understand that if they were to do this, what they just did with Egypt, Jordan, Iran, any other country, they would just go from one end of the Gaza Strip to the other end of the Strip with 15, helicopter gunships and just blast everything away. They wouldn't bother with precise bombing and sending in troops and stuff like that. And the hostages die, they die. The fact that they send in I mean, they don't appreciate the chesed.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going, oh, this is so nice of the Israelis. Then they know when you hear them talking, when they sent in reporters, they know that the Jews operate on a different level. They know that. They say that when they're interviewing one of the Hamas operatives. So we didn't expect Israel to respond the way it did respond. Right? Meaning that they expect them to operate with this, what we would call chesed. But they in other words, it's sort of like, it's sort of like a chicken, right? That leaves out its chicks so the lion has something to eat. The lion doesn't go, well, those chickens are really nice. This is happy it's got chickens. It doesn't take it as a chesed. The same way an animal doesn't take it as a chesed either. Anything you do for them. Right?
So then this phrase must really not apply to children, because children really don't have the das either.
They do have a das.
Really, a baby? A baby's like, oh, thank you, mommy, for waking up for the 14th time tonight. I'm so sorry for keeping you up all the time and taking all your energy while I nurse every 2 hours and then change me every 1 hour. Like,
yeah. You see, when you take your kids to whatever it happens to be, right? And you pick them up from school or kindergarten or nursery, whatever it happens to be. And as soon as you pick them up, they start crying, right? Because they're hungry, whatever it happens to be. How come they weren't crying with the nursery or the teacher or anything? Because they know they don't care.
It's so true.
Right?
They become a nerd to their uncaringness.
Right. It's not true that you're, and this is why you do it. This is why God designed it this way, because you're instilling in them this awareness. It's not a conscious. It's not a mind. Their intelligence doesn't understand it, but there's a saying in the therapy world that your body remembers the pain.
The body keeps the score.
The body keeps score. Right? So if it's abuse, it knows it's abuse. Right? That's why children who have been abused, God forbid, are very difficult to treat, because the consciousness of what they went through is deeply buried. And they're dealing with it, but they don't know they're dealing with it. It's not a conscious thing. So it's very hard to deal with them and get it out. I mean, it can, but it's very, very difficult. Right? So we digress tremendously.
Our motto.
Where am I buried? What's
So you were saying that Vayikra.
Oh yeah, right.
So
the beginning and the end doesn't have to be precisely the first sentence. We've seen that a number of times, that it's not exactly the first sentence or the last sentence that is considered the beginning of the end.
So you're giving us a hint.
Giving us a hint, exactly.
So we have some korbanos and flower offering and Aaron and more.
Right. So the theme of behukotay is a strange or unusual phrase. It really goes to the end of chapter 26. If you look at verse 28 there, you see it. But it is used a few times.
With a vengeance.
Well, look at the end of verse 27.
Verse 27. If suspect this, you will not feed me, and you behave toward me with casualness, I will behave toward you with a fury.
How do you translate casualness?
Yeah, but what is that casualness?
The Hebrew word.
Lo tishme'uli
Indifference.
Indifference, right.
v'halachem imi bikeri.
Right. What's Bakari mean?
He says, with the fury of casualness.
Casualness. B'mikra. What does b'mikra mean?
Isn't mikra like mikraot gedolot, like
No, that's a different.
no?
That's
This word bothers me, casualness. I really don't like this word.
Indifference.
yeah.
You have indifference? I don't like this word. This is a scary word, this indifference.
Mikra'ot Gedolot is the same spell. It's the same, yeah, because it's from the word kara, to read. So somehow it's related. But kara, in the Hebrew, they say you meet somebody on the street, ma kara.
Like what happened?
What's happening?
Yeah.
What happened? Right?
How is that indifference and casualness?
Because it's saying that if you you know, and it's not unheard of that people go through all kinds of things and they treat them as accidents. This is one of those things that happens.
Oh, like a coincidence.
A coincidence. So if you treat the messages that God sends you, the things that happen to you, as just one of those things, a mikra, a happening. You know, it's one of, what do you want from me? It's one of those things that happen. Stop making such a big deal. Right? 400 missiles are shot from Iran, and not one of them kills anybody. It's one of those things. Just one of those things. Right? Like you've got they're fighting a war. Israel's fighting a war on 7 fronts. 7 fronts. Right? The mighty British Army didn't fight a war on 7 fronts.
Even Germany couldn't handle 2 fronts.
Even Germany couldn't handle 2 fronts. Right? America had 2 fronts, but you know, it was a different game. But they had an awful lot of other countries that were helping them.
Yeah.
Right? So they were fighting 7 fronts. And you know, unfortunately, God should help us. It's a terrible thing, right? One is too many, but the casualties are very, you know, ridiculous. Right?
Oh, but it's so painful every time I read. Like
100%. That's the beauty.
So young. Oh.
It's the greatness of the Jewish people, right? They've got 20 people approximately still hostage in Gaza. If it was any other country, okay, it's only 20.
That's true. That's how they would view them.
That's how they would view them. But I think Stalin said once, you know, 1 or 2 is a tragedy, 10,000 is a statistic, or maybe it's the other way around, I forget. But basically, like, you know, no one cares. So we take, you know, 20 is each one is precious. We don't go play the numbers game. So if you take what happens, like 400 missiles shot from Iran, it's just one of those things, just pure luck. We're lucky. We got away with it. We dodged the bullet.
Except for that one Palestinian when the bomb fell right down on him.
Right.
Poor fella.
Right. Right. So yeah, that's what the Torah is saying. If you treat the behukotay is all these terrible things that happen if you don't listen. So if you don't listen, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. But what do you do with each time it gets worse? It's not bad. It's not a message from God. God's not saying anything. It's one of those things that happen. If you treat these things, Bakari, as one of those things, then you know, me too. I'll do the same thing. I'll treat you in the same fashion. But what do you see? The end of the Torah, the beginning of the Torah.
It talks about Moshe and God.
How it's on the beginning of the Sefer.
Oh, the beginning of this Sefer Vayikra?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Hashem speaking to Moshe and they're talking about
what's the word it uses?
Vayikra, Kara. It's a different Kara though.
It's the same Kara. Well,
really, this one is with Kuf Reish Hey, no, and this one's Kuf Reish Aleph.
No, Kuf Reish Aleph, both times.
Really? 1 second, we must get the good Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch dictionary.
Yes.
Okay, we're listening. Ooh, this is an exciting one.
That, as well, Mattis points out, go look at the opening sentence of the book of Vayikra, and how does it spell Vayikra?
With a little aleph.
With a little aleph. So if you read it with a little aleph, it's like Vayikar. The same way as Vayikar in the end of in behukotay is a happening.
Huh. And that's exactly how he wanted it to appear, that it was like a happening rather than it was a specific.
Right. This is, by the way, the evil of Amalek. This is what they do.
They happened upon them.
Right, called them down. Don't take it so seriously.
It says over here, kara is summon, cause change in direction.
Right.
Befalling, occurring, inviting, greeting, convocation, bird imitating other birds. Wow, there's a lot of words here. But the first three is calling, summoning, and proclaiming.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you see the beginning and the end, and how they relate to each other. Our relationship to people or to life. We've talked about this before. All the pleasures of this world fall under two categories. There's only two things you can enjoy in life. One is connection, right, and the other is the relief of pain.
What you sometimes refer to as the relief of misery.
Or the relief of misery, right. The truth is, only Jews have the true relief of misery as a pleasure. Non-Jews have it, but they only get it once. So a guy, struggling to make it, he finally makes it, and that's it. You can't get it again. A Jew has the pleasure of the relief of pain every Shabbos. That's menucha. They don't have menucha. The only menucha they have is the grave. The grave is a menucha.
That's
so it's a bit depressing now, right? Because they have their life as a sense of accomplishment. Right? Winston Churchill, Harry Truman, whoever you want to mention, right? They've accomplished something in their life, and now they're finished, and they're going to the grave. So there's a menucha there. So there's a certain pleasure going on there, but they don't have it on a regular weekly basis. We have it on a weekly basis. So you see, nevertheless, they sell it all over the place. Everything in the supermarket is about the relief of pain, right? From a car to everything. You have this and you'll feel good, right? So everything is just like. It's removing an obstacle, removing a pain. We've talked about this. The gap between a Tesla car and a regular car is about $30,000 to $40,000. So why are people paying it? For the very, very few things that a Tesla relieves you of. Right, exactly.
Relieves you of having to.
What's that?
It relieves you of having to park your car and drive on your own.
Right. Very few things, right? But people will spend $30,000, even more, right? You understand? Because they think when I don't have to worry about parking my car and all these other things, then I'll be happy. Then I'll get the pleasure of life. So they won't. Right?
So the whole marketing world would just go poof if we explain this to them.
It would, right? But the world's been constantly on this path of taking away a light bulb. You don't have to worry about candles. You won't have to worry about gas. You won't have to worry about just flick a switch.
Now it's LEDs. Now it's longer between changing light bulbs. That's so ridiculous.
Right? Does it make you happy now? No. Doesn't make you happy. But they're constantly chasing, right? They're constantly, the Almighty, thank God, is constantly sending us little obstacles, little things that we think, because otherwise they would have nothing. Now, the truth is the whole world does have connection, but if you don't have meaningful wisdom or Torah, you don't know how to do it. You just don't know how to do it. So they don't have real connection. Most they do. It's not, there's not an absolute. A lot of non-Jews do have connection, a lot, but it's not the majority. It's a subset.
You mean they sort of crack the code?
Yeah, there are non-Jews who have really meaningful relationships with their spouses, with their children, with friends. It does happen, but it's a rare happening. They're too lost in the relief of pain to really identify it and focus on it, work on it.
Here we go. Relief of pain for a few hundred, or now a few $1,000.
That's it, exactly. It's just the relief of pain. You don't have to worry about missing a call. Right?
You can be occupied all day and all night.
That's another thing, right? We won't have to worry about, what was that quote, or what was the answer? Where did I read that? Or who scored the most home runs? I can just look it up. I have to worry about it, right? So anyway, since we're on behukotay, Rav Yaakov Weinberg Tzal, he has a phenomenal on behukotay, because he points out that behukotay, for those who haven't read it yet, is essentially a deal. In behukotay telechu, if you go in these statutes, all these good things are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't go, starting in verse 14, all these bad things are going to happen.
It sounds like my kid. If you give me treats, then I won't drive you crazy and send you to an early grave.
Right. Yeah, at least he's honest. He's open about it.
Well, I see where you got it from.
He goes,
the Almighty.
So Rav Yaakov, he points out that not only is the good 9 verses and the bad is 30 verses, right?
Wow.
But the good doesn't outweigh the bad.
That's kind of shocking.
Right, exactly.
This is exactly like a kid deal also. I'm serious. The good is like 10 minutes of quiet, and the bad is like all day madness.
All day madness. Right.
I was right. He got it exactly from the Almighty.
That's right. Right. I mean, I don't want to talk about on air you should just read it. The bad is horrendous.
Oh,
and the good is nice. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to have enough food and
yeah, it sounds a little boring. All this good to you? I don't know. I'm happy with the boring.
I'd be happy with it too, but I don't know if I'm willing to pay the price of the bad. That's the point.
Oh yeah.
The good is nice, but it's not that nice.
You mean to say that the good is not incentivizing enough, and the bad has to be super bad in order to prevent us from going in that direction?
What I'm saying is, the Almighty is not giving us a choice here. He's saying this is the deal. But if he did get a choice, most people would not take it.
What do you mean they wouldn't take it?
Because I'm giving you on the one hand all the food you can eat, security, peace and quiet. And on the bad side is death and destruction, misery, pain, the Holocaust. And then,
give me third choice, man. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I got it.
Let's just, can I get back to you on that one?
That's always the case, right? Oh, God always gives you only 2 choices. There is no third choice.
He's not giving you a choice here. This is the deal. He's not giving you a choice. If it was a choice, we wouldn't take it. You go, listen, I'm I think I'm going to pass. Thank you. I appreciate it.
But didn't you say that about the beginning also? Hashem gave Adam only two choices also. Either eat of all the trees and do not eat of this, because if you do, then you're going to die. I mean, he did it there too.
That's true, but he had a choice. And the choice was fair. But here, they're not given a choice. And the choice is not fair. The options are not fair. In other words, it's like someone comes to you with a deal, a business deal. If the deal works, you invest, let's say, $10,000. And if the deal works, you make $1 billion. And what if the deal doesn't work? We chop off your fingers.
Okay, so this is where you learn a lot of negotiation from your kids, because your kid would say, well, if you didn't want to have the situation to begin with, you shouldn't have done the Har Sinai business at the start. If you hadn't done that, then you wouldn't have this situation here.
That's right. That's exactly right.
My kids.
Oh, they're right. That's what the Midrash says. When they got to this
really?
bit, they were like, oh my goodness, what do we get ourselves into? They were shocked. They were not expecting this.
Okay.
Right? So you see, it's one of those questions I always ask. There are 4 quadrants. The rich get richer, the rich get poorer, the poor get poorer, and the poor get richer.
All right, so I know the answer because you've really drilled this one into us. There's no such thing as the rich getting richer, because it doesn't matter how much more money you have, you still have the same functionality in your life.
That's it. The rich cannot get rich. It's the great misnomer. It's Adam Smith, Karl Marx economics. Is no such thing. Well, Elon Musk, I'm watching a video of Mark Zuckerberg, right? This is the interesting thing about business and how he's thinking, and I find it interesting. So some of the things I do on my spare time, whatever that is, right? So but anyway, so thank God I have the time to do it. And he's wearing clothes no better than the average than anybody else I know. He's got, it looks cheap, and and he doesn't look particularly happy. He's not exuding, he's one of the 20, I don't know what it is now, 20 richest people on the planet. Right? Because once you've got a pair of shoes, there's not much up. There's just not much up. He's wearing sneakers like you can get from Payless shoes. I'm sure they're not Payless shoes, but I'm sure they're not $1,000 sneakers either. Right?
Okay, fine. They're $500 sneakers, $1,000 Levi's.
They're not. They do not look like that. But the point is like, even if it was, it's not more comfortable than the shoes I wear.
That's true. It's not more comfortable than what we would wear.
Right. So there's no up. That's what the Torah is pointing out. There's no up. Once you get to these things, you have security, you have enough food in the refrigerator, right? You're at peace. You don't have to worry about your enemies. You don't have diseases, no wild animals. Once you have those things, there's no up. That's it. You got it, right? But it can always get worse.
Oh, now I get where you're going. Yes. This makes sense then, what behukotay is saying in the beginning.
Right. There's one way to live life, but there's many ways to mess it up.
Wait a minute, but don't you say there's no way for you to mess up?
That's true. You can't. There's 2 things you can't mess up in life: yourself and your children. Right. But what you're doing is you are playing out your mistake. In other words, what you do when you mess up is you are
course correcting.
You're course correcting, but you're going down this when you mess. I mean, you heard me say this many times, right? Everything on this planet does one thing really, really well. And human beings are born stupid, and it's downhill from then on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't do anything well. Right? Even when we practice it, even when we got it down. Mm-hmm. Right? It's stupid upon stupid. right? So we're going to mess up. Those things that we mess up is not a mess up. It's an opportunity. It's the purpose of it is to learn from it.
Right. Course correct.
Right. So you're not messing up. You're doing something so you can learn how you should behave. It's like falling off a bicycle. Falling off a bicycle isn't messing up. It's the process you have to go through to learn how to ride a bicycle. You can't learn a bicycle without falling off.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right. So that's not really messing up. That's just getting messy, like with paint kind of thing. You're just getting messy. You're not messing up, you're getting messy. Okay.
So that's what it says. Like if you don't, God's responding to your mistake and telling you, get your act together, right? Pick yourself up, ride your bicycle this way. And if you don't listen, you just keep going, then it's just going to keep getting worse.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that casual indifference, that word is still bothering me.
Casual indifference.
That one. So it's going to feel like that is basically what he's saying. He's saying that these terrible things will happen to you because you're not paying attention, and it's going to get progressively worse because you're still not paying attention.
Right. Now, what is the deal? Again, I refer back to Rav Mattis one, Rav Yaakov's son. So let's go back to the beginning of behukotay. In behukotay telechu. And Rashi makes a beautiful point here. It's in chapter 20, is it chapter 26?
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 26, verse 3.
Mm-hmm.
In behukotay telechu, if you go in my statutes, that mitzvosai tishmaru, and my mitzvahs you keep, but I see some of them and do them, right? So Rashi wants to know, what's the behukotay? If you go in my chukim.
Oh, so which ones you're saying?
What is it referring to?
Right. Which ones are it referring to?
So he says it can't be mitzvahs.
Because it already mentioned the second time around.
Right. The mitzvahs is the second, right? There's two parts or three part, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's not mitzvahs. So what's hukai? So he says that's Torah.
How come is that? How come that's Torah? Because usually we think of a chok like the para duma or the chok as like kosher.
Right. That's exactly right. Right. So Rav Berkowitz, he says because ultimately Torah is not is its own world. A chok is like it's not irrational, but it's a decree
that you can't necessarily understand.
You can't necessarily see that. So that's a misnomer in the translation. A chok doesn't mean you can't understand it. It means you can't like kashrut. You might be able to understand why kashrut, but you don't relate to it in the way you relate to murder, for instance. Don't murder. We don't understand that either, but we relate to it.
Huh. What does the word chok itself mean then?
That's a very good question. What does Hirsch say? Why don't you look it up?
Is it just, but I don't know if he does two shorishes. I mean, two letter shorishes.
With Chet Vav Kuf.
Uh-oh. Fix limits.
Right.
1. Fixing needs. Hitrifni lachem choki. Fixed amount. Lo keletem chokechem. Set portion of food. Chokechem v'chok benechem hi. Fixed limits.
Right. It's a rule. Sort of we might relate to it as an arbitrary rule, but it's a Again, it's like kashrut is a hawk. So
I guess
what
in a
is
way the man was considered a chok also. Like you're
the
supposed to take a
the
certain amount. It was a fixed amount.
amount? Right, very good.
And
Very
it didn't
good.
matter if you took more or less. It was always the same amount that you needed when you got home.
Right. Now, so Rav Matis makes the point, it's a beautiful point. If you learn about tzitzis, tzitzis is not in behukotay telechu, it's ve'et mitzvosai tishmaru.
Mm-hmm.
There's two different things you're supposed to do. You've got to follow the mitzvahs,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you have to go in the way of the hukim.
One is you have to set your path, and the other one you have to just watch and be careful.
Right, you just do the mitzvahs. So putting on sisters, putting a mezuzah on the door, keeping kosher, that's the mitzvahs. Now, here's your tricky question of the evening. If you learn about sisters, if you learn about kasher, if you learn about mezuzah, is that in behukotay telechu? Is that Torah or is that mitzvahs?
I'll tell you what it is. This is a trick question. It's asitem otam.
So which one is it? Learning about sisters? Is that learning about mezuzah? Is that the mitzvosai tishmaru?
I'm only getting two choices. I forgot. I'm sorry. The brain's not functioning. I think it's what you said in the beginning, which is behukotay telechu, because you said that chok is learning Torah. So if you're learning about tzitzis and everything else, then you're doing the first part. But then when you're actually doing it, when you're putting on the tzitzis and you're putting on the mezuzah, then that's the asita motam.
No, then what's the mitzvosai tishmaru?
Maybe you could do two at the same time.
To the same time, what? To what?
In other words, if you're saying, you know what, I want to follow the Torah, and while I'm saying that, then I'm learning about tzitzis and mezuzah, and I'm learning that these are commandments that I have to follow, then I'm doing both.
You're doing both. What's the both here?
Behukotay telechu and mitzvotay tishmeru.
But what's the difference in behukotay telechu from mitzvosai tishmaru? What's the difference between those two?
I think one requires a lot more like immersion in understanding and like having like a mental like a certain mental perspective, and the other one is just doing it. It's
Very
just
good.
To be careful, I have to do it.
Very good. Excellent. Right?
Really?
Yes.
I was grasping at straws and something.
No, 100%. In behukotay telechu is the immersion, right? The et mitzvosai tishmaru is the guarding. The guarding is the learning too.
Because you have to know, well, how do you do it? It has to be a third of the way up, and da.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so that you can do them. So then what's the im behukotay telechu? It's not learning to do the mitzvahs. It's learning, it's just loving the learning.
Oh, it's sort of like saying, you know, I think Charlie Harari gave this example. I'm not really sure, but it sounds like him. It's like you know your father's like a very smart businessman, and so you read everything that he writes about business because you know he's very clever and you're so interested in what he has to say. But then taking what he said and actually putting it into practice so that you could do well in business is a different thing entirely. The first thing is, oh, wow, Dad's so amazing. I want to understand him and like how he thinks and like, you know, what his strategy and whatever is. And the other one is, okay, let's use what Dad said to make money.
I don't relate to that example, but I think you're on the right track. I would use a better example.
Okay.
Your wife tells you to pick up groceries on the way home, right? 3 apples, 2 oranges, the whole list.
Milk. Okay.
Right? So you're very careful, right? You write it down, You follow? That's the et mitzvah tishmaru v'asisosam. I'm learning the mitzvah, what my wife wants to do, right? And I'm doing it. You follow? In behukotay tishmaru, right, is I get my wife likes oranges.
And then buying it even though it's not on the list?
That's a different point. That's et mitzvah tishmaru.
Oh, you're saying because it's on the list, I understand that my wife likes it. I'm learning from just seeing the list that this is what
I'm understanding my wife.
I see. Yes, I get that.
Right? It's understanding God. The Torah is the thinking of God.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Mind-boggling. The thinking of God. So some people, they just read it because they want to know what to do. That's very good. But they're not learning the thinking of God. It's a different way of being when you understand the thinking of God. Now, Jews intuitively understand the thinking of God. I don't know if you saw, I sent around a video, mind-boggling, of this hostage. And it seemed to be like a very secular Israeli.
Oh, the one who was like saying, "Hi, Abba, how are you doing?"
Right.
Oh, that was so amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Right? Where did he learn to pray like that?
Just by being a Jew, I guess.
Just by being a Jew, exactly. It's the thinking of God. He understands, a Jew understands the thinking of God. The most secular Israelis on the planet, they understand the thinking of God.
The truth is, they're not really secular. You know why they're not really secular? Because there's generations of behaviors and thinking that has gone into his parents and his parents' parents and etc. all the way back. So it doesn't matter how secular you get, you can't escape it.
You see, that's beautiful. You follow? And that's exactly how we started the class this evening.
We did?
Yeah.
What did we say?
All that nurturing you give to your baby when they're not cognizant impacts them in a level that just cannot be replicated by somebody who's not Jewish and doesn't care. It's just not. You're saying you can't fake that stuff. It's past. It's ingrained in who a Jew happens to be, in their thinking, in the way they it's in their pause. It's in the way it's in their
it's in the ear in the family.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what he's saying. That's why he's saying you've got to maintain and grow this aspect, because there's things that you will never get unless you're engrossed in the thinking of God and trying to understand the thinking of God. And relating to your spouse is very similar to this, because your spouse's desires, like the currency of marriage is to fulfill your spouse's needs. That's the currency. No one leaves anybody where their needs are being met. If you fulfill your spouse's needs, you're a done deal, right? The problem is we don't even know our own needs. Now, the need is not the same thing as a want. Right? We don't know. We don't know. Do we really need this, or I want this, or I'd like this? We don't know our own needs. But when you do know your own needs, when your needs are being met, right? You'll do anything for that person. Right? We'll do anything for anybody. Right? People spend absolute fortunes to get things because they think it's going to fulfill their need, whether it's a car, whether it's a big screen TV, whether it's whatever, a house, whatever happens to be, because they feel it's going to fulfill their need. My need to you, to somebody else, is a hawk. It doesn't make any sense.
I like the way you're using the word chok here, because that really fits.
That really fits, right? And there was I have a friend. He says, I like peanut butter and jelly for lunch, but when it goes fishing, I use worms. The fish like worms, so I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to get fit, you understand? Right? I don't understand it. It's a hot for me, but my wife likes, like I always joke, my wife likes me to put dead things on the dining room table. I have no idea why. But when I do it, she goes, "Oh, that's so nice." Okay, fine. I think it's a complete waste of money. Right? I'd much rather get a potted plant, right, that lasts for like a few years.
Yes,
right?
but will you be the one taking care of said potted plant?
Sometimes I do, but the point is, like, she doesn't want that. She wants dead things.
Yeah.
Right? For some reason, that's her hobby. Now, the more you understand and you relate to it and you get into it and you think about it and you connect with it, the more connected you both become. This is the same thing with your
mom. You have to even understand it?
What's that?
You mean you have to even understand the Hulk? What are you saying here, Rabbi? This is beyond.
It's not an understanding like, oh, I get it. They have worms because they like, it's the nutrients, it's the protein, and it's not like that, right? It's like, oh, I kind of get it. Yeah, the flowers. Yeah, it looks kind of cool. Yeah, okay. Is that
now arrange different colors
and
different types and make it like huge or small or short and tall and like it's like endless. Whereas the potted plant, it's just one type.
That's true. Yeah, you hear that. But you see that's what marriage is. Marriage is the same kind of relationship between husband and wife, between God and the Jewish people. It's a hug. That's why people are married long, and they get this. They understand each other implicitly. They can say, "I like it, but my husband doesn't like it. He's not going to. He's going to like this. He's not going to like that." You can finish each other's sentences because they really get into the hug, how they're built.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen overnight, but it's a process, and the closer you get to it, the more meaningful the relationship.
So what do you do with a spouse that constantly changes?
Well, I mean, every spouse we're all changing all the time. It's a moving target. The things that you're interested when you're in your 20s are not the same thing you're interested in your 30s. We're all of them, but it should be, if we're doing it right, should be getting deeper. So when you're in your teens, you're into video games, and when you're older, it's not, hopefully.
I'm still into video games. I don't know what you're talking about, Rabbi.
It's different things, but you mature and you get it deeper. Right? If you're maturing along the same lines, you mold each other into more meaningful things. The children are a very good example of that. Right? You both connect with the idea of getting your children off to Marlith. Right? That's a hawk. Makes us both happy that we're connected with that thing. Right? You see, these things are so what we would call natural. We don't realize it. We don't identify that we're thinking about along these lines. But it's very hard to be married to somebody that is not is not abusive, dysfunctional, without this process happening.
So if that process doesn't happen, then you can assume you're married to someone dysfunctional.
Well, you'd notice it was dysfunctional. I've had those, and I had to deal with some of those relationships. It's very strange stuff. I hold that's the reason television was invented, because otherwise people would think that these strange relationships are normal. Even though television presents marriage in a very perverted way, it nevertheless has some core issues that it kind of projects that we can all relate to. It shouldn't be abusive. There should be constant communication. There should be connection. There should be affection. Right?
That what TV provides? Really? I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, the marriages on TV, the process of how they get it and everything else is silly, but there's some aspects of it that are true, and that's why television was invented. That's why the Almighty wanted television.
I thought the purpose was to get messages out in a very
Right. But this is one of the big messages. Right? That we should have relationships that are fulfilling and fun and enjoyable. That was one of the messages. Because otherwise people would think marriage is just what's the word? For a purpose. Marriage is just to have children. It's just there's a word for it.
utilitarian or something.
Right. What did you say?
Utilitarian, is that the right word?
Right, exactly. English isn't my first language, right? Utilitarian. That's what people would think. The whole point of marriage is just you have children. Once you have children, that's what people would think.
Maybe people do think that because there's a whole subset of married people called, what do they call them? Dinks or something? Double income, no kids. Yes, dinks. Double income, no kids.
Yeah. That's the opposite. They don't have kids. It's not
Right.
utilitarian.
It's not utilitarian. It's meant to pool your resources so you can both have fun.
Yeah. It's having both. That's the thing. Anyway, thank you. Have a great Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom. Can I ask you a question about the previous parsha?
100%. I can try it. I'll never forget.
I can't tell you how bad this bothered me the first time when it was my son's parsha Lainey. And then the next time I read about it. It's about the blasphemer.
Yeah.
I mean, stop the video if you want, but
You want to? It's up
the
to you.
whole story is so
Which
I
this
don't
is
understand
why
the whole
Behar-
thing.
This is why Behar starts. But Hirsch has a fantastic answer to this. He says, why? He says, Behar, it's chapter 25, verse 1. V'yidaber Hashem and Moshe Behar Sinai. You see?
Right. Yeah.
It says, why does it tell us Behar Sinai? It's talking about Shemitah. Because you shouldn't think that Shemitah was not given on Har Sinai. Right, Father? Why would you think Shemitah is not given on Har Sinai? Because we see from the blasphemer that we didn't know what to do with him.
Oh, so if you had learned everything you needed at Har Sinai, then you would have known what to do with him.
Right.
Why didn't they know what to do with him?
Exactly, that's what Hirsch says. Why? So why didn't they know? Right? So Chazal point out they didn't know because God didn't want to certain things in life you don't want to say to your children. Do we think, and there's a great message in parenting, we think we live in this enlightened society that we talk to our children about everything.
No, you can't do that. Are you crazy?
Exactly.
You have really messed up kids if you do that.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, it's not a plus that you have to talk to your children about strange people that might come up to you. It would be much healthier society if we didn't have to talk about it with them.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's the message. Why God didn't say this. If somebody blasphemes against God, how can you? It's like saying what do you do if you spit in your mother's face?
Mm.
You don't want to say that thing. You just say, "Don't do it."
Right.
Right, Father? You don't want to give the thought in people's heads. That's what the Navi says. The first step of doing an avera is talking about it.
Oh, because then you become immersed in it.
It becomes acceptable.
But how does he come to do this horrible thing? I mean, why isn't he accepted? This blasphemer.
Isn't he? They stone him. What do you mean?
Right, but the reason why he becomes a blasphemer is because he feels rejected.
He feels rejected, right? Right.
Why does he have to be rejected? I mean, his mother is known as Shulamit, right? Like, this is a woman who was a very kind person.
Well, I don't know. I don't know her background so well, but
It's not his fault that he was born the way that he was.
it's not his fault. But he's not the only one who hasn't got a place. There's all the non-Jews that came out from Mitzrayim. They also did not have a specific tribe that they fit in. Somehow they had to deal with them and put them somewhere. They had a place.
Oh, so he gets upset by the place that they place him in, which is
Whatever,
no place at all?
wherever he's available, he's not what he wants. He wants to play he wants a different role.
Oh, that's why he gets upset. He's doing a what's his name? The one who gets eaten by the earth.
Korach.
Yes, he's doing a Korach.
Yes, but you see, it's more than that. It's not just that he's upset about that. What triggered him was the lechem apanim, the showbread.
What about it?
So he says, is this a way to respect God? That you leave the bread on the shulchan for a whole week and then you eat it? Like, what kind of craziness is this?
Yeah,
You
but
honor God by
it's
giving fresh bread.
fresh. No, but it's still fresh. What do you care how long it takes?
That's the part that he seems to have missed. That he didn't
Why is he
appreciate.
upset about it?
That's a very good question. I don't really have a good answer for you why he gets upset about it, right? But it bends him out of shape. Whether he's using that as the trigger, and it was the basis of his being upset is not having a place.
Yes,
And then he's using the bread as the trigger.
that makes more sense. The excuse to start a fight.
Right. That's what brings him out. Right. So that seems to be what's going on here.
Huh. So if they had given him a place, would he still have become a blasphemer? The story really bothers me.
If they had have given him a place, he would have, his dysfunction, his bad thinking would have come out in some other way.
So it was really just that he had like strange thinking that was the real issue, not so much the place.
Right. That was just in the same way that if the snake had not have caused Adam and Chava to sin, they would have exhibited the same fault in a different way.
Right.
But it would have been worse.
Right. So this is somebody who already has blaspheming within him. It's just that this is the specific thing that brings it out. It could have been something else that would have brought it out.
If something else would have brought it out, right?
So even if he had been given a place, something else would have happened and he would have ended up blaspheming.
But that's the whole point, that you cannot mess up your children. The things that go wrong are points to bring out ways of perfecting ourselves. It's sort of like the fuse box. In the good old days, they didn't have fuse boxes, so you fuse the house, the whole street blew up, right? So now they put a fuse box. They put a weak spot in the line, so that if it gets gets too hot, or too much power going through the line, that will blow and saves the whole system.
Right.
That's a very good thing. But you don't want the fuse box to go, but it's better that go than the whole system go. So that's what mistakes are all about. God's helping you make that mistake so you can correct the whole overall character fault, the issue that you have.
So really, in a situation like this, giving the person what they supposedly want is not the helpful thing.
Right.
Helping them to see their incorrect thinking is what is necessary.
That's right.
To really change their life and get them to a place of happiness and not continue to stay in the blaspheming mode of thinking.
Right. That's why in behukotay, if you engage in Torah, you save yourself.
We came back full circle. Maybe that's what this whole Vayikra is about, right? Is that what we said? Is that what Vayikra is about?
Yes, Vayikra, very good. Vayikra is calling. The relationship is a calling between two people. but if you look at the other person as just an accident, like they just, I remember one time I came home. This is when we were living in Los Angeles. My kids were very little. And I come home and I'm having a good day, and the sun is out because it's Los Angeles. The sun is always out. And I'm having a good day, and I get out of the car. And as I get out of the car, my wife is standing on the porch, and she shouts at me, "Get your son and punish him." I don't know what's going on. It's very hard to punish your son, any child, when you're not in a good when you're in a good mood.
Uh-huh.
Right? It's like you got to be in a bad mood to go, "Oh, I'm fed up with you," right? So I grab him, right? I'm not going to say which one it was. I'm going to grab him. So I grab him and I say, "What's the matter? What did you do? What's the matter with mommy?" Right? You fought with Ima.
Uh-huh.
And he said to me, I still remember, this is now 30 years later. I said, he said to me, "I don't know. Mommy's in a bad mood."
Not that I put mommy in a bad mood. It's
Right.
not the things I did that put her in a bad mood. She's
Right.
just in a bad mood. I just proved it by pushing the button.
Right. That's right. Exactly. That's the behukotay. That's if you go with me, but Kelly, just God's one of these things. It's just, this is what happens. God's in a bad mood. He's just like, it's just the way things are. I can't help it. It's just this is what happens. You don't take responsibility for anything that happens. If you go with me, but Kelly. But if you listen to your spouse, right, and you try and understand what she's really or he's really saying, or what's really going on, or what's really bothering you, right? Then spouses really do think, it's weird. From the day you're married to you're married for, please God, 100 years, but from the day you first married, it's like, I don't know what she's talking about, or I don't know what he's talking about. This is one of the things men do, or one of the things women do. That's typical, whether you say those words or not. Right? But that's how you perceive, because it doesn't make any sense. Why do you want me to spend? We're having money problems. Why do you want me to spend $20, $30 on dead flowers?
Why didn't you just buy plastic ones?
Plastic ones, exactly. You understand? Makes no sense. She's obviously in a bad mood and she needs it to pick her up. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense.
I'm dying to know. What did you tell your son when he said mommy's in a bad mood?
I just laughed. What am I going to do?
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yes, hysterical.
So actually, Vayikra, it not only means to call, but it also means to read. And when you read, you do it much slower, no?
Yes, right. That's why you're supposed to learn Torah that way. You're supposed to read out the words.
Interesting. There's a little bit more to it. There's like a certain, like when you read something, you're thinking more about it. You're reading into it.
That's it. 100%.
So that's what the whole thinking business is. It's like when you're reading the Torah, you need to read into it. Not just read it, but read into it.
Right. That's why a billion Christians read the Torah, but they read it.
Yeah, they don't read into it. They can't. They don't have the original. So sorry. You
don't
better throw out your New Testaments. They're worthless. Don't come after me. Anyway, this was fantastic. Thank you for clearing that up. I cannot tell you for how many years that last part of Emor was bothering me.
Okay,
years.
Good.
I can sleep tonight, Baruch Hashem. Thank you so much, my bars.
All the best.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.